So in deadlocks, we have the following characteristics which has to be highlighted. So the blocking state, what we are going to mention, a hang-up state, what we mention, is going to be part of a deadlock. So deadlock will occur, deadlock will occur when there is some ambiguity, and that ambiguity we are going to call that one as some blocked state. We will be calling that state as a blocked state. So there are some resources in a multiprocessing environment. So there will be multiple devices or multiple processes which are competing, and all together these are going to compete for the same resource. So in that juncture, there is no other option. What this deadlock is going to occur. So that can be taken up as a part of multiprocessing or multitasking. There it is going to work on few attributes. The first attribute will be some no preemption. The second option will be circular waiting, and third option will be hold and wait. And fourth option will be the mutual exclusion. So using these elements, the processing is going to work. So hold and wait. After hold and wait, the another one, there are four characteristics. One, we call it as no preemption. Two, we call it as circular wait. Third, hold and wait. And fourth one was mutual exclusion. So these are the four characteristics what they are going to use. So all these four characteristics, mutual exclusion. So all these four characteristics, they work with requesting of a resource, using of a resource, and releasing of a resource. In general, resources are going to be mentioned as R1, R2, like that up to some Rn. And CPU cycles, what will be a resource? Resource can be a CPU cycles, resources can be memory spaces or IO devices, whatever it is. So in 8086 instructions, you would have learnt about move instruction, add instruction, some multiply instruction. So what it is going to say, it says I need some 3 cycles. Move says, add says I need some 4 cycles. Multiply will say I need some 5 cycles. So the total number of cycles will be some 12 cycles what was requesting, and these CPU cycles has to be granted to the program as per the availability of cycles with the CPU. So that was the primary task where operating system is going to be in a situation to grant a resource or to revoke a resource, etc. So as mentioned, the 4 characteristics which are going to be part of a deadlock will be: 1, we call it mutual exclusion; 2 will be hold and wait; and 3 will be some no preemption; and 4th one will be circular waiting. If all these properties are going to occur at the same time, then only a deadlock is going to characterize, or then only a deadlock is a situation if it is going to prevail. If 1, I can say mutual exclusion; 2, we can say hold and wait; 3, we can say no preemption; and 4th one we are going to call it as circular wait. If all the 4 things are going to occur simultaneously, only deadlock will come. So make a note of this statement. That if any one of a condition is failed, obviously we can say there won't be any deadlock. If all the 4 conditions are going to come into scenario, then only deadlock is going to occur. So that is what is a key takeaway, what we have to look into this aspect. Okay, so after that, we do have some deadlock. After deadlock characteristics, we do have some aspects which are going to be part of a things what how a deadlock is going to occur, and let us define each and every characteristic independently. Okay, now first of all, we are going to talk about the mutual exclusion. First of all, we will be talking about mutual exclusion. Okay, so mutual exclusion, it is going to occur in a multi-threading environment. It is going to occur in a multi-threading environment. When I am going to call it as a thread, we can say it is a lightweight thread. Okay, so when we are going to say it is a lightweight thread, then we can say every thread is going to have a stack, and it is going to have some data segment, it is going to have some code segment, and it is going to have some extra segment. In this way, we are going to attribute all the content here. So we call it as stack segment, we are going to call it as data segment. Then we can say it is code segment, we can call it as code segment. And the fourth one will be where it is going to store up the pointers. So for pointers, we are going to call it as a for pointers, etc. We are going to call that one as some extra segment. Okay, then when it is going to be part of a multi-threading atmosphere, it is going to support one-to-one threading, nor it is going to support many-to-one. Similarly, it can support one-to-many. It can support one-to-many, and finally, it can be supporting some many-to-many. So these are the four architectures a multi-threading is going to highlight. And in this environment itself, the multi-threading, it has to go with some mutual exclusion. So mutual exclusion was that before I am to use a common area, before I am going to use some common area, or I can say shared memory here, which is a part of some critical section, Now I need to have some protection mechanism, and that mechanism, it is going to be provided with a mutual exclusion. That too we can say locking, and that locking we are going to call it as some acquiring phase. So where we are going to give a lock to a critical section, there we are going to call it as an acquiring phase. And after acquiring phase, we have to go with some releasing of a phase. So releasing of a phase, we are going to assume that one as a unlocking phase. So one, we are going to call it as locking phase. Second, we are going to call it as an unlocking phase. And third thing, the critical section, whatever we are going to propose here, that we are going to use it, right? So using the common elements are going to be fabricated in this critical section, where we are going to call them as a shared memory content. Okay, now mutual exclusion as a whole will see that at most one process enters, at most one process, it is going to use the critical section. At most one process is going to use the critical section at a time. So at a time, if I am going to have P0, if I am going to have P1, if I am going to have P2, these are the three contending processes which are going to want to use a critical section. In this three, only one process is going to be allotted. So that is where the mutual exclusion is going to bring up the scenario. So you can see here when we are going to use a mutual exclusion, so I can say one mutual exclusion acquired, and another mutual exclusion, we are going to have some locking mechanism. So the second lock is unlocked, the first lock is unlocked in process P0, and similarly I can say first lock is unlocked and second lock is going to be unlocked in process P2, And here do something is nothing but some using the elements in the critical section, using the attributes inside the critical section. That is where we are going to discuss it up. So we will see that at most one process is going to use or enter into the critical section. Fine. After mutual exclusion, the second criteria was it will support hold and wait. So when a process is going to ask for some resource, earlier it is going to book one resource and it is going to use that resource. So hold and wait is a situation where a process is already holding one resource and it is going to request for another resource. So that is where the hold and wait situation occur. So to do this hold and wait situation, the pre-mandated towards the deadlock will be the resource allocation graph, So in this resource allocation graph, we are going to mention the vertices and we are going to mention the edges. So all the vertex V, they are going to be pointed out by the processes P0 to P1, P2, P3, etc. And similarly, the resources, what we are going to call, it can be CPU cycles, it can be memory, it can be some IO devices, whatever things are going to come. So those we are going to put them as some resources. Okay, now I do have some processes like this. Now processes, they are going to be done with some vertices. So process, they are going to be represented as vertices, and these edges, they are going to be done with some resources where it is going to mention one with request edge and another one was with assigned edge. So before I discuss a request edge or an assigned edge, there was one more edge what we have to focus. That one we are going to call it as a claim edge. So claim edge, in order, it is going to be represented in form of dotted lines. Claim edge is going to be done in form of dotted lines. And claim edge, and the claim edge, what we are going to consider, it is once it is going to be allocated, then it is going to be written in darkened line. It is going to be written in the darkened line, and you can see here the darkened line exists between process to resource or resource to a process. Okay, fine. Now let us look into the definition of resource request edge. So when I am going to call it as a request edge, it is going to be directed from a process to a resource. Then we are going to call it as a request edge. And if it is going to be directed from a resource to a process, if it is going to be done from a resource to a process, then we are going to call it as an assignment edge. So from process to resource, we are going to call it as requesting edge. And from resource to process, we are going to mention the notation. Then it is going to be assumed as some assignment edge. So that is the key takeaway of this slide. Okay, now we do have the resource allocation graph representation, and this resource allocation graph representation, it is going to be pointed out with processes, it is going to be processed out with instances, and it is going to be done with some assignment edge. And then the previous we have already taken, that is from that is resource to request edge and assigned edge. So we have to mention here. So one we are going to call it as request edge, another we are going to call it as some assignment edge. So this is called as request edge, that is from process to resource. We are going to call it as request edge. And here you can see the second thing was resource to some process. resource to some process. So resource to some process, we are going to call it as some assigned edge. Now, the small rectangles, what we are going to represent inside a square or a rectangle, we are going to call here as instances. So the rectangular box is going to be represented as resource. Circle is going to be represented as the process, and the small rectangles, what they are going to be put in a resource, they are going to be called here as some instances. Okay. Now, here is an example. Here is an example of some resource allocation graph. So in this resource allocation graph, you can exist that for resource R4, for the resource R4, we are going to have 3 instances. For resource R4, we do have some 3 instances. So we do have some 3 instances, and for resource R2, we do have some 2 instances. And similarly, for resource R1, we are going to have, for resource R1, we are going to have only 1 instance. And for resource R3, again, we can mention there is only 1 instance. There is only 1 instance. Okay. Now, let us look in a scenario where hold and wait, a second property of a hold and wait, a second property of the deadlock characteristic is going to be done. Okay. Now, let us look into the P2 case. So P2, it is going to hold. It is going to hold a request. It is going to hold a resource R2, and it is going to wait for resource R3, and resource R3 was in hands of P3. So that is first scenario. Let us look into the second scenario here. So let us look into the second scenario. So process P1 is already holding resource R2, and it is waiting for R1, and R1 was in the hands of P2, and R1 was in the hands of P2 here. So resources, they are going to be represented with rectangles. Processes, they are going to be represented with bubbles. So now this scenario, you can look into it. So in this second case, process P1, it is going to hold a resource called as R2, and it is going to wait for a resource R1, and resource R1 is going to be still with the process P2. So P2 won't release, and P1 is going to be waiting. So again, it is a scenario where a deadlock is going to come into picture. So until unless P2 won't release the resource R1, because resource R1 is a common variable, it is a critical section. It is in a critical section. So obviously, until unless P2 releases the resource R2, P1 cannot take over the resource. So it is going to wait, and it may lead to starvation, and obviously it is going to bring up the deadlock. So that scenario is going to happen. Now let us look into the third characteristic, which it is going to be an extension of a hold and wait. We are going to call it as circular waiting. We are going to call here as a circular waiting. When it is going to be a circular waiting, it is like a circular linked list, nor it is going to be in a fashion of round robin. So that means P1 is hold is dependent on P2, P2 is dependent on P3, and P3 is dependent on P1. So there is a chain structure, and that means P2 is going to hold a resource which is asked by P1, and P2 is going to wait for a resource which is held by P3. Similarly, if I can say P2, P3 case, P3 is going to hold a resource which is asked by P2, and P3 is going to wait for a resource which is asked by P1. So in this way, the same loop is going to be iterated between P1, P2, and P3. So this scenario, it is going to link up with circular waiting. So you can see the scenario which it is going to focus up with circular weighting here. Circular weighting. So now you can see that P1 is a process which is going to hold up with P1 it is going to ask for or I can say it is going to wait for R1, and P1 it is going to hold a resource which is going to be done with R2, and similarly P2 it is going to hold and resource R1, and it is going to wait for resource R2. So obviously this is going to lead to ambiguity, and which it is generating a deadlock. So resource allocation graph, it sees that at any point of time, there won't be any deadlock in the allocation. At any point of time, there should not be any deadlock to happen. So that means there should not be a cycle. If there is a cyclic, obviously it may lead to a deadlock. So that is a thumb rule what we should remember here. So the fourth one what we have to talk up was the fourth characteristic. What we are going to look was no preemption. So no preemption. So when we are going to say no preemption, so I am going to have process P0, process P1, process P2 and P3. Then I can say their arrival time and their burst time of process. So it can be some 10 milliseconds, or it can be some 20 milliseconds. So or it can be some 15 milliseconds, nor it can be some 20 milliseconds given by the process which is going to be taken up. And now their arrival time is going to be 0, 0, 0, 0. Their arrival time is going to be at 0, 0, 0. So it is going to take up all the process which has been arrived at process P0, and then only it is going to process. All of a sudden, if P4 is going to enter into picture at 4th millisecond, and it is going to ask, okay, give me some 25 milliseconds. At this case, it is not going to encourage P4. If it is going to encourage a P4, obviously it leads to some preemption, and thereby it is going to be migrated towards deadlock. Okay, so now in this class we have revised the 4 characteristics of the deadlock which is going to occur. So we talked about the system model, and that system model we have already taken up some locking mechanism. So locking mechanism will have request followed by using the critical section and releasing the critical section, and it is going to be bounded with 4 data structures of characteristics of a deadlock. One, it is going to be some mutual exclusion. Second one will be some hold and wait. Third one will be no preemption, and fourth one will be some circular weighting. And after these, we derived that critical section is going to be preserved by locking mechanism and unlocking mechanism using a mutual exclusion, and it sees that at most one process is going to occur. So if there are more than one process, then they are going to be competing, and they may lead to some starvation, etc. So that is one of a property towards this mutual exclusion. The second thing, in a way towards moving to the second and third characteristic of a deadlock, that is hold and wait, and multiple hold and waits, we are going to call them as some circular weighting. So those, they are going to be represented with the resource allocation graph. So resource allocation graph, yes, it is going to have a claim edge, and claim edge it is going to be plotted out with some dotted data structures, and once the dotted data structures has been confirmed, then it is going to be converted to some request edge, and thereby it is going to be migrated towards the assignment edge. When there is a request edge, yes, it is going to be from process to a resource. When there is going to be an assignment edge, then you have to understand that assigned, that is a resource is going to be assigned to a process. Therefore, it is going to be called it as from resource to a process. So how we are going to represent the process in a resource allocation graph? That means they are going to be represented with circles, and similarly resources are going to be represented with the rectangle, and every resource can have more than one instances. So more than one instances we are going to be represented in this bubbles, etc., in this small rectangles, etc. And then we have plotted from process pi to resource rj, which request. Similarly, we have taken from resource Ri to process Pj. That is from resource to process, we are going to plot a link, and that one we are going to call it as an assignment edge. So after that, we do have a scenario. After that, we do have a scenario where in this scenario, multiple hold and waits and a single hold and wait is going to come into say thing. That is, if I am going to take an example for a process P2, it is going to hold resource R2 and it is waiting for a resource R3, and R3 is going to be taken up with the process P3. So in this way, we are going to have some hold and wait, and such a type of hold and waits are going to be in form of a chain, that is from process P1 dependent on process P2, process P2 dependent on process P3, and process P3 dependent on process P1 in a round robin fashion. Then it is going to claim up with a word called as a circular waiting. So the end objective of a deadlock was there should not be any cycles to be formed in the resource allocation graph. So if there is a cycle is going to be formed in a resource allocation graph, definitely it is going to lead to a deadlock. So the main intention was there should not be any cycles during the construction of the resource allocation graph. After the resource allocation graph, the fourth one will be no preemption. So we have many processes which are going to occur at time interval t0. So all the processes which came at time interval t0 will be processed. After they have been processed, next the other things which can be P4, P5, etc., they are going to be processed. So until then, P4 is going to wait. Until then, P5 is going to wait. So that waiting state, it is going to be called, may lead to a starvation, thereby end up with a deadlock. So these are the four characteristics which are highlighted as a part of a deadlock algorithm. Okay.
Sorry, you are muted, sir.
Yeah, I'm just opening another PPT. Sure. 1 second. Yeah. So after deadlock characters, the next thing what we have to emphasize will be the factor that if there is no cycle, then there is no dead. If there is no cycle, then there is no deadlock. So the highlighted thing what we have to mention. If a graph contains a cycle, and similarly, if there is only one instance, then it may lead to a deadlock. If several instances are there, there is a possibility of deadlock. So how do I justify this? That means I have a word called as a safe state. After safe state, then I am going to have some unsafe. And if it is so, assume that I am going to have a resource R1 and it is going to have an instance that is just single instance. Then it may lead to deadlock. Now I do have resource, and resource it is going to have 4 instances. Resource R is there and it is going to have some 4 instances here. So we can say it is multiple instances. We can say it is going to be a multiple instances. So multiple instances are there. Directly not come. There will be a possibility of deadlock. There will be a possibility of how this possibility will take over it. It may take over with one a safe state, another can be a unsafe state, and third one it can later on converted to a deadlock state. So the main intention towards handling a deadlock will see that deadlock has to be prevented, not deadlock to be avoided. At any case, even though if a deadlock is going to occur, we should be in a position to recover the situation. The situation should be in control of the operating system. So that was highlighted. Now, all the solutions what we are going to propose are to be related with the 4 characteristics only. There is no other 5th characteristic. We have only the 4 characteristics. So the first solution will be with mutual exclusion. So when mutual exclusion is going to be taken up, resources, they are categorized into 2 parts. One, they are going to be called it as read, and another we can say it is write. Write operations, we can say they are non-shareable objects. When we are going to say it is a read, then we can say it as some shareable objects. Objects, not a resources. So when mutual exclusion is going to be applied, to where it is going to be applied. So if I'm going to impose mutex exclusion, if I want to impose a mutual exclusion, then you apply for non-shareable. That is, you apply for operation rather because read-only files doesn't need a mutual or a locking mechanism, because concurrent users can at a time can use it, because they cannot modify it, they cannot alter it. They are going to just view the things which is posted on the wall of a website, right? We create a website is going to be displayed, everyone is going to see the content. So we are not able to edit the content. Then we are going to say it is a readable. The second one was that hold and wait. So the scenario what we have brought earlier was P2 was uh, P2 was asking for a resource R2, and R2 was with process P3, and it is as R1 P1. Okay, so this situation was hold and this situation was wait. So now how to see that the condition will be prevented? If you want R2, then release R1, then release R1. Very simple, right? So if a process is going to ask for a new resource, whatever old resource it is available with them, it has to release it. Therefore, hold and wait will be attended, right? So mutual exclusion, divide the resources into two categories, one in read mode and another in write mode. People with read mode, no need to go for mutual exclusion. That means 50% burden is gone. Then apply the mutual exclusion in a write mode. So 50% has been shared, right? Next one, how I can break the chain of hold and wait. Breaking the chain of hold and wait is as simple as that. If a process is going to ask a new resource, and if it is having some existing resource, okay, you first release the existing resource with you, then I will give you the new resource. Okay, so if process P2 is asking for resource R2 and it is having resource R1, the operating system will tell first to release R1, then I will allot R2. So that is how a hold and wait is going to be. So in today's class, we have revised the 4 characteristics of the deadlock, and then we have taken up the resource allocation graph and about claim age, assignment age, and allotted age. And now we are working out towards the solutions, how the deadlock can be prevented, etc. So further today class we have discussed about mutual exclusion and hold and wait. So that is all for today. So tomorrow what we are discussing. So thank you for joining.